I didn't know whether he'd heard me or not. As soon as he'd spoken, he'd pulled his mask back up into position again to protect the momentarily exposed skin against the horizontally driving ice storm. But he seemed to understand, for he eased his grip on the rope round my waist and let me move ahead again. For the past 2.5 hours, Hansen, Rawlings, and I had each taken his turn at being the lead man on the end of the rope, while the other 3 held on to it some 10 yards behind, the idea being not that the lead man should guide the others, but that the others should save the life of the lead man should the need arise. And the need already had arisen, just once. Hansen, slipping and scrambling on all fours across a fractured and upward-sloping raft of ice, had reached gropingly forward with his arms into the blindness of the night and the storm, and found nothing there. He had fallen 8 vertical feet before the rope had brought him up with a vicious jerk that had been almost as painful for Rawlings and myself, who had taken the brunt of the shock, as it had been for Hansen. For nearly 2 minutes he dangled above the wind-torn black water of a freshly opened lead, before we'd managed to drag him back to safety. It had been a close thing, far too close a thing, for in far sub-zero temperatures, with a gale-force wind blowing, even a few seconds' submersion in water makes the certainty of death absolute, the process of dissolution as swift as it is irreversible. In those conditions, the clothes of a man pulled from the water become a frozen and impenetrable suit of armour inside seconds, an armour that can neither be removed nor chipped away. Petrified inside this ice shroud, a man just simply and quickly freezes to death. In the unlikely event, that is, of his heart having withstood the thermal shock of the body surface being exposed to an almost instantaneous 100-degree drop in temperature. So now I stepped forward very cautiously, very warily indeed, feeling the ice ahead of me with a probe we devised after Hansen's near accident. A chopped-off 5-foot length of rope, which we dipped into the water of the lead, then exposed to the air until it had become as rigid as a bar of steel. At times I walked, at times I stumbled. At times, when a brief lull in the gale-force wind, as sudden as it was unexpected, would catch me off balance, I'd just fall forward and continue on hands and knees, for it was quite as easy that way. It was during one of those periods when I was shuffling blindly forward on all fours that I'd realised that the wind had, for the time being, lost nearly all of its violence, and that I was no longer being bombarded by that horizontally driving hail of flying ice spicules. Moments later, my probe made contact with some solid obstacle in my path, the vertical wall of a rafted ice ridge. I crawled thankfully into its shelter, raised my goggles, and pulled out and switched on my torch as the others came blindly up to where I lay. Blindly. With arms outstretched, they pawed at the air before them like sightless men, which for the past 2.5 hours was exactly what they had been. For all the service our goggles had given us, we might as well have stuck our heads in gunny sacks before leaving the Dolphin. I looked at Hansen, the first of the 3 to come up. Goggles, snow mask, hood, clothing. The entire front part of his body from top to toe was deeply and solidly encrusted in a thick and glittering layer of compacted ice, except for some narrow cracks caused by joint movements of legs and arms. As he drew close to me, I could hear him splintering and crackling a good 5 feet away. Long ice feathers streamed back from his head, shoulders, and elbows. As an extraterrestrial monster from one of the chillier planets, such as Pluto, he'd have been a sensation in any horror movie. I suppose I looked much the same. We huddled close together in the shelter of the wall. Only 4 feet above our heads, the ice storm swept by in a glittering grey-white river. Rawlings, sitting on my left, pushed up his goggles, looked down at his ice-sheathed furs, and started to beat himself with his fist across the chest to break up the covering. I reached out a hand and caught his arm. "Leave it alone," I said. "Leave it alone?" Rawlings' voice was muffled by his snow mask, but not so muffled that I couldn't hear the chattering of his teeth. "This damn suit of armour weighs a ton. I'm out of training for this kind of weightlifting, Doc.